Hey, good evening, everybody. We're going to give everyone a chance to get logged in. I know for a lot of you, this is new to be watching the series on YouTube rather than Facebook. So we'll give everybody a chance to sort of get their bearings straight. If you watch this from the Facebook page, you will have the opportunity to be able to interact with us throughout the show. If you're watching it, from the YouTube channel. If you're watching it from the Facebook page, you do not have the opportunity to comment live, although we will check all comments when the program is over, or sometime between now and tomorrow morning. So welcome everybody to Inner Alchemy After Dark and our series Stregoneria, Italian Witchcraft and Folk Magic in the postmodern witch. I'm John Michael Salvato, as many of you already know, a hereditary witch in the Southern Italian and Italo-Africano traditions. And tonight, as I said, we are going to begin our series on Stregoneria. Now, Stregoneria is the Italian word for witchcraft, and we're going to talk about what makes that tradition unique, and how we're going to unpack it during the course of the next several weeks and into several months. So we'll talk about that when we come back.
Come, little children, I'll take thee away into a land of enchantment. Come, little children, the time's come to play here in my garden of
And we are back. So welcome everybody. Yes, it does look like I got everything unpacked in time for tonight's show. Although in the interest of full disclosure, if I move just a little bit out of the way, you'll see there's still some boxes. But thanks to the magic of video, I can make sure that the chair and my shoulders block what I don't want to be seen. So welcome. Like I said, tonight we're going to start our process, our class, in which we're going to begin to unpack Stregoneria and what it means, and how to begin practicing. If whether you come from an Italian or Italian American or Sicilian or other European heritage or not, we want to make this information accessible to everyone. So I'm breaking oaths and I'm breaking with tradition to an extent. There are some things that are private and secret and relative to my family tradition alone, and I won't be sharing those with you. And I wouldn't advise anybody in the tradition to break those kinds of norms. Now, in order to understand Stregoneria, first we have to understand some of the misconceptions that exist around it. In 1970, I believe it was, a woman by the name of Nicola Zanichelli defined Stregoneria in an Italian dictionary called the Vocabolario della Lingua as a word that was rarely used. And she said that the definition was the practice of harmful magic. So, with the establishment of the Catholic Church, Stregoneria was opposed and eventually outlawed in I think around the 17th century. But it continued quietly under the guise of what we call benedicaria, or fallo santucci, which just like we find in the Afro-Caribbean tradition in Santeria, the Italians hid our traditions beneath the veneer of the Catholic saints. The same thing happens in Santeria. They call this syncretization, but that is a word that I believe is probably more European and less widespread. But the simple fact remains that in Santeria and in the Benedicaria or Fallo Santucci traditions, we use the veneer of the Catholic saints to be able to practice and basically hide in plain sight. Now, what Zanichelli and ethnologists like Dr. Elsa Gugino couldn't know was that that definition was the church's definition. It wasn't a real definition. It wasn't the people's definition. And it certainly wasn't the one that was embraced by thousands upon thousands of practitioners of the craft in Italy. And yes, there are thousands upon thousands of practitioners of the craft in Italy to this very day. Now, we don't publicly use the word Stregoneria. In fact, when we're discussing our ways in public, we would call it la via, the way, or la via vecchia, the old way. We might refer to it as la preghiere, or the prayers. The practice of magic is not one that we're ashamed of, but it's something that's kept secret. It's something that's powerful and ancient, and which allows us the ability to, as I said, to hide in plain sight. And so I made the decision personally when I was writing the book, Magic at the Crossroads. I thought I had a copy of it handy. It's in the other room. But Magic at the Crossroads, Italian folk magic and the old religion. I made the decision writing the book that I was going to use the word that we use to refer to one another and to the practice on occasion as a means of taking back the power of that word. Just as I would say as a gay man, I identify as queer. We took back the power of a pejorative term. So as a stregon mago, as a practitioner of Stregoneria, I am proud to say that that is my path. I'm proud to say that's my tradition. And in doing so, that diffuses the ability to make it pejorative, the ability that the church has had to somehow make it dirty, as though everything that they do is not in itself a magic ritual, largely ceremonial magic rather than practical magic. So, and really, if you think about it, in a way, even pioneers like Raven Grimassi and Laurie Bruno, who created their neo-pagan religion as a representation of the Italian-American folk magic blended with Wicca, which they call Stregoneria. Even their naming their tradition Stregoneria is taking back the power boldly and unapologetically for the root of that word strega, saying that we're not ashamed to be witches. So tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and keep this relatively short. Next week's will necessarily have to be a longer segment, but I'm going to try and keep it short tonight. I just really wanted to talk with you about what you're going to need for the Italian folk magic course. Now, if you didn't watch the last 2 weeks broadcast, I would recommend doing that because in that we unpack some of the sort of the mental preparation that you should be undertaking, and there was a little bit of homework in there to read the Gospel of the Witches so that you're familiar with the difference between witchcraft and the cult of Diana. But tonight we're going to talk about what you're going to need on a practical basis for the course, Italian folk magic and witchcraft in the Italo-Africano traditions. This isn't going to be a course like, I'm not going to grade anybody. There's not going to be, really homework per se. There's not going to be any homework that you turn into me. If there's homework, it's going to be homework that you do for yourself. And we're going to talk about the folk magic traditions. And yeah, I said traditions with an S because in the last 50 years, I've never seen a consistent or identical version of the Italian craft from one family to the next. It just doesn't happen. I mean, there are some core components. We're going to be talking about those, some core ideas and common ideas, a common understanding of the herbs and plants and roots and flowers that we use for specific purposes, as well as the spirits and the way that we work with the spirits and the veneration for the ancestors. We're going to talk about all of those. But the expression of those things is as beautifully diverse and colorful as the most breathtaking tapestry you've ever seen. So every family, sometimes within a family like our own, in the little nuclear families that make up that big family, there are differences in traditions that can be, subtle, or they can be vast. But every single one of them is beautiful, and so we want to honor those too as we're going forward. And we need to understand that what this series isn't going to cover is going to be the old religion. So we've talked about that a little bit in the past. I talk about it a lot in the book and in previous videos, that this course is not going to cover the worship of the god and goddess, of Diana and Dianus, or Uni and Tano. This is going to be about witchcraft. So any of the alleged group ceremonial rituals that you might have heard about as supposedly part of the Italian tradition, none of which are actually part of the ancient Italian folk magic tradition, those things are all part of the old religion, which in the present day is being expressed in America as Stregoneria, which was not witchcraft. It's the cult of Diana and Dianus. It's the old goddess religion that's still practiced by many today, and that many believe has been practiced, with unbroken continuity since the ancient days. But that is a religion. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially take the place of the grandmother or the grandfather in a traditional Sicilian or Italian home. And so for the next several weeks or months, or however long it takes us to really unpack this, every time we come together, it's going to be with you taking on the feeling or the sense that we're by the family hearth in the kitchen, or we're by a fireplace in the family room. And if you have difficulty visualizing that because those things are not part of wherever you live in the world, then maybe think about being outside by a fire pit, or at the very least, bring a large candle and set it on the table with you as you share this time with me. We've intentionally subdued the lights a little bit so that we can do this program by candlelight for you guys, so that you get the sense that we're sitting in the living room, and sharing as a family. So that's what we're going to do. Here's what we're not going to tolerate. Some time ago, I think probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, a group of neo-pagan Italian Americans put up a website, which I'm not even going to dignify by mentioning the name. And that website misrepresents both Stregoneria and stray-go-NEHR-ia completely. And one of the claims that they make on that website is that those who practice Italian folk magic aren't really practicing stray-go-NEHR-ia, because we don't have the need to pretend that goddess worship was ever part of the ancient tradition of the craft itself. Now, goddess worship was part of the culture that we come from, but it wasn't part of witchcraft. It was completely separate. And so it's really absurd. The people that write that website, in my opinion, are full of shit in the simplest of terms. And there's one thing, though, that they did get right. And so we're going to really kind of underscore that, I think, in the next few months. And that is something that's authentically Italian, not Italian American, but Italian. And that is that Stregoneria refers to the practice of sorcery, while Stregoneria is a sabbatic religion. So when we mention Stregoneria, we're talking about the old religion. When we talk about Stregoneria, it's the practice of sorcery. It's the practice of herbology. It's the practice of folk magic. It's the shamanic practice of the Italian people, of the Etruscan people, actually, originally. And last time I checked, sorcery or magic is what witches practice. Religion is something that some witches might practice, as well as some doctors and some shoemakers and some bakers and some housewives. From my perspective, religion poisons everything because it's about manipulation. And so for me personally, I want nothing to do with that. What I want to share is the Italian folk magic, the witchcraft itself. And I want to share that in a way that really unpacks, so that we get a full sense of just what an important role the craft has played historically in our culture as Italians and as Europeans and as citizens of the world. Because remember, this tradition actually is a combination of Etruscan, the people from Etruria, as well as African, who ended up coming to Genova, and then from Genova to Sicily, and from Sicily to southern Italy, in Reggio di Calabria and Napoli and Pompeii and those areas. So when we get together next weekend, we're going to really be diving in. We're really going to be getting to the heart of this. And so you'll probably want to have a couple of things. You'll probably want to have a notebook that you can actually like take real notes, like things that are occurring to you in your head, as well as possibly. I'm sorry, at this time of night my Parkinson's meds wear off a little bit, so my voice gets a little bit weak. I'm also going to recommend that you have a journal. It could be any kind of journal, from the fancy ones to the ones you pick up for a couple bucks at the bookstore. But you're going to use that journal as a place where you can start notating some of the spells. You can notate some of the herbs and what they do. When we talk about essential oils and we talk about taking care of the body and the mind and the spirit, you may want to keep some of these things in a journal that you can refer to in your practice of the craft later. The notebook will be where you just scribble any kind of notes as you're going, questions that you might have, and by all means, it's important to us that everybody feel comfortable asking questions. This is not one of those places where where we're going to encourage folks to say, okay, well, what you got to spell for this, you got to spell for that. My baby daddy ran off with my nail tech, and can you do a spell to make her uterus fall out? We're not going to do that kind of shit. This is going to be where I teach you the fundamentals. I teach you the foundational practice of living a truly magical life, the foundational practice of actually embodying witchcraft in everything that you do from the Italian perspective. And so you're going to know how to create spells, you're going to know how to create charms, and you're going to understand some of the cultural parts, components of Stregoneria. Why we use a specific herb, why we do a certain thing, how maybe some of these practices evolved as we had to go from the practice of pure Stregoneria to having to make it benedicaria. A great example of that will be when we talk about the Maloicchio, which will be one of the early classes that we do, because it's a cleansing ritual, at the end of the day, and we need to understand it as such. So we're going to talk about a lot. If there are things that you want to see or questions that you have, go ahead and ask them in the comments to this video and successive videos. But don't ask me like just to do a spell for a specific reason, unless you want a general understanding of how to do a particular spell. But I would recommend that you keep the questions focused on the material that we're covering at that time, because you'll get more out of this if I'm able to go in a systematic method. And what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to be like the grandmother or the grandfather, truly daddy warlock for you, and I'm going to share with you, speaking adult to adult. I'm going to kind of make the stories and the way, the packaging that my grandmother or my aunt would teach me, and I'm going to make it an adult version of that. And but I'm still going to make it so that these stories build on one another, so that we have the sense of what it's like to grow up in an hereditary magical family. And so we're going to do that. I have to reference that on Amazon, somebody who read my book, I presume that they actually read the book. They said they were going to send it back and get a refund. But they said, oh, this was like reading a part biography, part rant, and it just astounded me that person completely missed the point of what I wanted to do with the book. They said that I was attacking Raven Grimassi and Leo Martello and Charles Leland and Gerald Gardner. and they just missed the point of everything I wrote in the book. So if you happen to be reading the book, Magic at the Crossroads, or if you've read the book, if you wouldn't mind going to Amazon.com and posting a review for me, I would truly appreciate that. I see that Sherry Landry just tuned in. Hello, Sherry. Good to see you. You're catching us right at the very end. Tonight, I wanted to keep this short, under 30 minutes for sure, because we're just talking about the things you're going to need for next week's program as we begin our class on Italian folk magic for the postmodern witch. So I'm really excited about sharing this with you guys. Sherry, I'm glad to see you. You'll probably want to go ahead and rewind this. I apologize that we are really just about at the end, I think, tonight. And I don't see any other questions or comments from the material tonight. So like I said, if you don't have a notebook and a journal separately, you can certainly put them in the same thing. You just probably, if you're like me, my notebooks have scribbling in them. My journals, I take the time to really write something that I'm going to be able to read a few months later. But my notebooks might have, drawings and circles and arrows pointing to other areas on the page. So that's why I say having both. But guys, I'm excited about this. We are also beginning tomorrow our Year of Thinking Magically masterclass. So I'm leaving here tonight to prepare for that class tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that. And then for the guys that are tuning in, we've actually started a Facebook group for male practitioners of the craft. It's called Brothers in the Craft, the grown-up version. You can find that on Facebook. I will be sure to put a link to that in the About section here. And it's a group for men to explore the masculine aspects of our spirituality and our magical traditions, the craft. There will be people that are involved there who practice witchcraft as a religion and those who don't, like myself. There will be people who practice Stregoneria and stray-go-NEHR-ia and voodoo and Gardnerian magic and everything in between, tradcraft. We welcome everybody and we strive to make sure that place maintains its integrity and respect for one another, and that it never become that kind of group that you see with petty and sophomoric, spiritually and emotionally immature individuals who feel that they have to rule with an iron fist and determine who can and can't comment and what they can comment and who can express their opinions. This is a place where we all express our opinions, and we express our opinions openly and honestly, just like this show. And we respect that not everybody will agree with one another, and not everybody. Thank you, Sherry. I just saw that you posted some very kind words on the screen there in the comments. For those that are watching us on the replay too, I would say, if you don't mind, let us know where you're watching from so that I get a sense of time zones and everything else. These programs do go on Sunday nights at 10 o'clock and usually around the same time on Wednesday nights. And that's 10 o'clock Eastern time, here in Pennsylvania. So you can always catch them on the replay. If you do, let us know that you're watching on the replay. I appreciate each and every one of you. And as we say at the end of every program, I encourage you, as you get ready to go on this adventure with us, to go on this journey, to return your focus, your attention to the present moment, to be grateful for everything you've got. So fill that present moment with a sense of gratitude, a sense of knowing that you're secure and you're safe right here and right now. And when you do that, that opens the door for the abundance that's waiting for you. Allow that abundance to pour in, and always remember, the best is yet to come. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a fantastic week, everyone. And I will see you on Wednesday.